The next thing we'd like to share with you is butterfly leverage. So I talk about this a lot. And in each opportunity that you have, there lie many other opportunities. You just have to think to look for them. So it's a lot like a Russian Matryoshka doll, right? There's one within another, within another, within another. Or how many of you saw Inception, the movie Inception? Anybody? You're 3 of the 17 people that saw it. But it was a dream within a dream within a dream, right? So the idea here is to get as much out of everything as possible. So in 2010, I was in Europe with my wife. We were traveling, and there was an eruption of a volcano in Iceland. And when I went to Iceland a few years later, my guide said, by the time we get done with this week that you have here, I'm going to teach you how to say that one Icelandic word, which is Eyjafjallajökull. So Eyjafjallajökull erupted and put ash all over the sky in Europe, shut all the flights down. We were trying to get out. And I didn't know about it because I wasn't watching the news. And I went to check in for the flight, and they were like, yeah, all the flights are canceled. So we had kind of done everything we were going to do. And I asked my wife, I said, you know, I've been studying all this product launch stuff. I've never done one. But it's like, you know, this thing where there's an affiliate product, and I'd like to find one and see if I can sell it and just see if the stuff that I've been working on and studying actually works. And she's like, yeah, I don't care, I'll just read. And so I was like, okay. So I went online and found this product that was being sold at the time by a guy named Mike Koenigs. It was called Main Street Marketing Machines, and it was selling for $3,000. And I was like, okay, well, this would be a good thing to start with. So I signed up as an affiliate. The problem was that I didn't have a product, so that's why I had to find his. But I also didn't have a list because I just hadn't built one. And I didn't really want to spend a lot of money on it because we just spent a lot of money on the trip. So as a test, I decided that I would commit money to it. I committed $1,250 to it, and then I wrote a business plan. The business plan was about 14 pages long, and it was just an outline, so it wasn't like a, you know, what's the size of my market and stuff like that. It was just, these are all the things that I can do to generate revenue. And I think there were maybe 16 or so different things that I realized could do it. SEO was one, YouTube videos, buying mailing lists, partnering with other people. And some of it was ads. I spent about $1,250 on ads. And in 6 days, I sold $1.265 million of this product, which put me as the #1 affiliate. And I was more than, my goal was to sell more than Frank Kern had sold before, because he had sold 400 and he's a friend of mine. And so the first day I sold 585,000. So I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. It was amazing that it worked, but if I had stopped there, and I didn't get to keep all that, I only got to keep about 800 grand of it. But that's 1,012 times my return on that investment, by the way. In 6 days was pretty good. But then I wanted to say, well, what can I get out of this besides this initial money? And I think where we have a tendency to stop is that we have a big lick like that, and we say, okay, we did good, what's next? But rather than saying what's next, I said, what else can I do? So I found out that he was having his launch event, or like his customer appreciation event for all the thousands of people that bought this thing here in San Diego, where I live, and it was not starting until 1 o'clock in the afternoon on the first day, which is kind of a miracle because every event starts at 8 or 9 a.m., but for some reason, whatever, he had started at 1 o'clock. And so I called the hotel and I said, can I get the 8 to 12 space in the other big ballroom that you've got that he's not using, and I'm going to host my event. Because I had promised my people an event that I would get together with them and do some training that had bought, because I had about 400 and some people that had bought from me. And they said, well, you have to get his permission. So I called him up and I said, you know, hey, I didn't know him. I said, hey, I'm the guy that sold, I was your #1 affiliate, and I got this customer appreciation thing. Can I get the room for that time? He's like, yeah, no problem. And I said, are you going to sell anything to the people? And he said, no, the only thing I sell is a certification. I said, okay, that says they've completed? Yeah. I said, okay, you don't sell coaching or anything like that? No. I was like, aha. So I scheduled the space, and then I was like, how can I get more people to come to the space? So this is where you start leveraging, right? So now first thing is, now I know I've got this event, and I also know that he's got several thousand people coming. I've only got 400, so how can I get more people into my thing. So before anybody else that I know of in this industry had done it, now the big event people do it, and we do it at Traffic Conversion Summit. But I asked the hotel, I said, do you guys have a dark channel that plays the video over and over and over, right? And they said, yeah. And I said, how much would it cost for me to buy that during this event before, when everybody's checking in? I only need it for that one day. What would it, if I want to run my own video on all those channels? And they said, it's $1,200. And I was like, done. So I bought it and gave them a video that pushed, hey, here for the Mike Koenig's event, come to my thing first. It's before the event starts on the same day. Wondering what you're going to do during that 4 hours? I got you covered, right? And then I had...
Did you get on camera and say that?
And then if I did, and then I paid 3 people to stand out from my mail business, to stand out and hand out flyers to everybody as they were walking around, because there was all these people walking around the event that said the event was going to happen. Then I went up to the front desk and I said, hey, is there any way that I could get you guys to maybe hand these out for me? And I handed them a stack of the flyers with 2 $100 bills on top, and they said, absolutely, we would be happy to do that. And so all of this happens, and the time comes for the event, and I have no idea what's going to happen, right? And in the event world, the room was about maybe 4 times, this room 4 times as big. And in the event world, when you think you're not going to have that many people, you set the room in rounds because it makes it look fuller, right? So I had the room set in rounds, and people started coming in, and all the rounds got filled, and then there were doors like this around 2 sides of the room, and all around the room, people were standing, packed 2 or 3 deep, and then the windows outside, people were in a line trying to get in the room, looking in. And I was like, holy crap. And so when you sell in a room, ideally you put the sales table back there where Deanna is, because that's where you want people to go as they leave. You want them to be able to buy. I couldn't do that because the room was all windows and they wouldn't let me block the doors. They had fire marshals that are like, people are going to burn to death. And so I had to put the sales table, this was the stage, and I had to put the sales table right here. And I talked to my friend Mark Anthony, who's a member of War Room, some of you guys might know him, and said, I've never sold anything before, how do you do this? And he gave me coaching tips, and I built a coaching program. And I was like, I don't know how to coach people, I've never coached people before. Who am I going to get to do this? So the promoter, Koenig's, had 5 people that he called all-stars that he was propping up as the people who had done all this stuff before and were super successful. And so I was like, I know, I'll go to them. So I went to 2 of them and said, I'm going to sell this coaching program the morning of. Would you guys be interested in doing it? And they were like, yeah. And I said, I'll give you 20% of whatever I sell. And they were like, absolutely. And I was like, that means I get to keep 80% for doing nothing. I like that. So I did the thing, made the presentation, had all those people in the room, and then I was like, the moment of truth is when you make that pitch, and I had never done one of those from stage pitches before, and I was like, so, if you're interested, fill out the application. And then it's like, wonder what's going to happen. And the line snaked from here like a Disneyland line all around, and at the end of that 4-hour period, I had sold $465,000 worth of coaching to these people that I didn't have to deliver. So I got to keep 80% of that. Absolutely. And then in follow-up trainings, sold another $1 million. So that was trying to figure out everything I could get out of it. The other challenge for me was that I didn't have a list, I mentioned at the beginning. So I asked the affiliate manager, I said, can I have all my opt-ins for the opt-in page? Because you're supposed to send them as an affiliate, you send everybody to an opt-in page. And I was like, I'm going to send all those people to that opt-in page and they're going to register, and then you guys aren't going to do anything with it. And they're like, no, we send them emails and stuff. I said, you're not going to market to them like I would market to them. And the affiliate manager, John Kronstadt, who's now a good friend of mine and now is the president of Kajabi and a War Room member, said, man, I talked to Mike. He said, no, you can't have them. And I was like, okay, no problem. So I called around and found a programmer to build a page that cloned exactly the registration page that Mike had up and I sent all my traffic to my page where they registered, and then it registered them automatically on his page. So it basically, every time they registered in my page, it registered them on his, and I built a list of 7,300 people that had opted in, who I then sold millions of dollars worth of stuff to over the next few years, doing different product launches. And then also was able, because of the success that I got a name, because I was listed on the leaderboard as #1, and everybody was like, how the hell did you do that? So I started sharing that with some of the top people in the industry, and ended up being able to get connected to Frank Kern and all these other great, long-term people that I otherwise wouldn't have had success with. Ended up doing lots of deals with them and doing partnerships and everything. So that was like getting everything out of each aspect of that. And then just one more story, because I really want you to take this home. With Richard Branson, it took me about 6 to 9 months, I think it was, to finally get the contract with Richard Branson to appear at Traffic and Conversion Summit last year. And we were 3 weeks away from Traffic and Conversion Summit when I finally got the contract with him. And it was at the point where I had to tell him, and you go through his foundation. And so I'm telling the lady at the foundation, look, I know you want the money, and I want Richard, but if we don't get him now, we can't advertise it. We're not going to be able to make it make sense. We can't do the deal. So she finally pushed it through, and now we've got the deal with Richard. And so we knew that he would sell lots of tickets because he's got such a name. And the person that we're 90% of the way to having for this year has probably an even bigger name, so that's going to be kind of fun. But that's my TNC teaser for you. But we know that ads sell tickets, but it was like, what else could we do? And we did sell quite a few tickets just announcing him to the email list. But we also got our affiliates to re-push. We reached out to our affiliates and said, hey, you guys did great before, but now we've got Branson. You should definitely tell people. So they sold a whole bunch more tickets by mailing again when they wouldn't have normally. And then all of our speakers, we got our speakers to mail again, because when you have an event and you have speakers, you want your speakers to market for you. So you put this little thing together for them that has the event information over here and their picture really big here, and then the most famous people you can are little pictures of them on the bottom, and then they send it out to their list, and it's it's like, ooh, look, I'm speaking on the stage with whoever. So they had already mailed too. So we redid all of the speaker announcement things for them with Branson under it, and they all mailed like crazy again, sold a whole bunch more tickets. Then we said, okay, Clarion, who had bought Traffic and Conversion Summit, or 80% of it from us, had a budget for me, and the budget was not enough to pay for Richard Branson. And I couldn't get them to agree, even though they knew it would sell a bunch more tickets, I couldn't get them to agree to pay the addition. So I said, okay, what if I pay it? Because I want them to have it. Keep in mind, we sold this on an earnout, meaning that based on the performance of 2019 TNC, we could get millions and millions of additional dollars in addition to the millions and millions we got for selling TNC. So I know if Branson is there, we're going to have more tickets, we're going to sell more stuff, we're going to sell more booths, and we're going to get our millions and millions. So I'm really hot to have it. So I said, okay, if I make up the difference, because I had just worked this deal out, and now they're saying we can't pay for it. I was like, "Argh." So I said, if I make up the difference, can I buy a sponsorship for the difference for the reception, and we'll do a VIP reception, because I had negotiated a VIP reception with Richard. And I told them, I said, you guys should do this because I will make money. And they said, that's not our business. Our business is the event. I was like, cool. So I did a VIP reception, announced it, sold $15,000 tickets, and we ended up selling enough to not only pay the extra, but to make a profit of a couple $100,000. So we actually got to keep a couple $100,000. Then, knowing that we had the VIP reception, it was like, well, how else can we sell tickets? Well, you're always looking for a reason to be able to mail, so our reason to mail was, what if we have a contest giving away a couple of spots for the $15,000 reception with Richard? So we sold that, we made that announcement, and we sold a whole bunch of tickets, right? Then I said, okay, how about people that we're negotiating deals with, or that we want to do a deal with, that we've had a hard time getting a hold of? So we invited these people. It was like, hey, Paul, I know that we've been talking about this deal for a long time. I got this thing with Branson. Would you like to come over and we'll have a drink with him and talk about it? So we had some of those people come, and we're able to put together deals from that. Then, if you notice in the picture, when I interviewed him, I could put anything on the background that I wanted. So I put the podcast that I had just launched, Business Lunch Podcast, with me right up here behind him and all the things, and I got thousands and thousands and thousands of subscribers and downloads because of doing that, which helped me boost the podcast. Then I had him as a podcast recording. So I haven't released it yet because I have a deal with Apple to have an exclusive for them of the release of that podcast for 60 days in exchange for putting me on the iTunes page with Branson. So that's getting everything you can out of what you've got, right? And I'm sure I missed 10 things too. And I tell you that not to say again, look at me, but to say when you are thinking about anything, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. I promise you, if you don't do this. So take your core action, whatever the core thing is that you're going to do, and then say, what are 5 ways that I can leverage that? And you can say monetize or leverage, however you want to do it, right? And then write those 5 ways down, but don't stop there. If I stop there, I leave a lot of money on the table. Then for each of those 5 things, think of 5 ways you can monetize that, okay? Think of all the things that you can do to leverage and monetize all of that stuff.